SHEDEUR Sanders walked into the post-game press room with the kind of expression that only quarterbacks who've been through hell can wear. Not anger, not shock, not defeat, but a raw, exhausted honesty that strips away the last layer of polish and leaves only truth behind. It was the face of someone who had given every ounce of himself only to watch the game slip away through decisions he didn't make, through calls he didn't choose, through trust he had no choice but to give. As cameras flashed and reporters leaned forward with recorders raised like courtroom microphones, SHEDEUR didn't posture, didn't deflect, didn't hide behind cliches. He stood there as a young quarterback thrust into the violent heartbeat of the NFL, carrying both responsibility and resentment, trying to explain a loss that didn't feel like a loss caused by players but by the man meant to lead them. His words weren't a headline grab. They were a release, the brutal honesty of a competitor who knew the truth would burn but believed silence would burn even worse. Everyone in the stadium had felt the shift. The Browns had the game in their hands, momentum rolling, confidence rising, the kind of energy that feels like the whole building is breathing with you. Then, in a few inexplicable moments, the kind that becomes slow-motion trauma for players, everything imploded. Questionable decisions stacked like bricks. Game management crumbled. The rhythm Cleveland had fought to establish evaporated under choices that defied logic, analytics, and the eyes of every person watching. And through it all, SHEDEUR Sanders, calm, calculating, resilient, kept trying to pull the team back into sync, even as the sideline grew tense and the headset calls grew stranger. When the final whistle blew, the scoreboard didn't reflect his effort, his poise, his fire. It reflected something else entirely. It reflected decisions made above him. And that's why, when he stepped to the podium, there was no manufactured optimism, no sugarcoating. Reporters braced themselves, not for theatrics, but for truth. Because the truth had been simmering since the final minutes of the fourth quarter. SHEDEUR spoke slowly at first, choosing his words carefully, not wanting to disrespect the position of his head coach, not wanting to fracture the locker room, but also refusing to lie. He talked about preparation, about how the offense had practiced the 2-minute drill all week, about how he knew exactly what coverage the defense would show on second and long, about how he anticipated the blitz on the final drive because he studied that tendency on film. Then he paused, breathing in a way that showed the weight of what he was about to say. He said the play call never matched what the defense was giving. He said the team had opportunities to seal the game that were left on the sideline. He didn't blame, he described. He didn't accuse, he clarified. But the message was unmistakable. The Browns didn't lose because they were outplayed. They lost because the decisions guiding them betrayed the work they put in all week. The room shifted, cameras steadied, writers started typing faster. It became clear that SHEDEUR wasn't just giving an answer. He was giving context, a window into the frustration simmering in the locker room. What he said next was the kind of line that echoes. He explained that players trust coaches to put them in the best position to win, and when that trust wavers, everyone feels it. He said he understood mistakes happen, but felt the team took unnecessary risks and abandoned the identity they had built the entire game. His tone wasn't disrespectful. It was disappointed, measured, and heartbreakingly sincere. He said the quiet part out loud. The Browns didn't just get beat. The Browns beat themselves. Those words reverberated far beyond the room. For fans, it was the honesty they wanted but feared. For teammates, it was validation. For analysts, it was a rare glimpse of a rookie showing leadership through truth rather than blame. But for the Browns organization, especially the coaching staff, it was an earthquake. Coaches are used to shielding players from criticism, but they're not used to players, especially rookies, exposing cracks in leadership. Yet SHEDEUR didn't speak like a rookie. He spoke like someone who has lived under scrutiny his entire athletic life. Someone raised in the orbit of Coach Prime. Someone who watched a father face the firestorm of criticism and learned how to handle it with poise. He didn't lash out, he communicated. And that made the honesty cut deeper. Inside the locker room, even before SHEDEUR's press conference ended, murmurs had already begun circulating among players. Many felt the same way he did. They had fought every snap, controlled the tempo, established the run, exploited matchups, and defended their turf. And then, like a gust of wind knocking down a house of cards, the structure collapsed because the leadership above them didn't align with the reality unfolding on the field. Veterans recognized the feeling all too well. It reminded them of the painful truth that games are won by players but lost by organizations. Young guys felt helpless, unsure how to critique decisions without risking their place. But SHEDEUR's honesty gave them language, gave them permission, gave them a voice they didn't have to raise. His post-game words became a mirror reflecting the emotions of 53 men who had poured themselves into a game only to be undone by choices that didn't reflect their preparation. The broadcast world erupted instantly. Analysts debated whether a rookie should speak so bluntly, whether he crossed a line, whether he exposed too much, whether he displayed leadership or insubordination. But most agreed on one thing: SHEDEUR wasn't lying. They broke down the final play calls, replayed the sequences, mapped out the timeouts, dissected the clock management, and concluded that Cleveland's sideline had, indeed, sabotaged a winnable game. What stunned them wasn't the collapse. It was the rookie quarterback's composure in explaining it. They said no first-year player had spoken with that level of clarity and accountability in years. They said he was a truth-teller in a league that prefers sanitized answers. They said he didn't just react to the moment, he diagnosed it. Privately, people close to SHEDEUR revealed that he had tried to hold back. He didn't want his words to be ammunition against his coach. But he also couldn't pretend the team hadn't deserved better. He felt the weight of leadership, the responsibility to defend his teammates, to speak truth on behalf of those whose voices weren't amplified by the media. He knew he couldn't lie to the fans who trusted him, the teammates who fought beside him, or himself. That inner battle, the pressure to stay diplomatic balanced against the duty to be honest, shaped every sentence he delivered. Meanwhile, the head coach's post-game remarks told a different story. He defended his decisions, offered rationales that didn't match the game's momentum, framed the collapse as execution errors rather than strategic misfires. The contrast between coach and quarterback couldn't have been sharper. SHEDEUR spoke about accountability. The coach spoke about circumstance. SHEDEUR addressed what happened. The coach explained what he intended. Reporters immediately noticed the disconnect. It hinted at tension behind the scenes, tension the team would now have to confront. And the locker room felt that divide instantly. Players who listened to both press conferences recognized that SHEDEUR's perspective was shared by the majority. They also recognized that the coach's explanations felt detached from what they experienced on the field. The situation wasn't just about one game, it was about trust. Football culture runs on it. Lose it, and even the strongest teams crumble. Veterans discussed it at their lockers. Rookies whispered it in the hallways, and leaders sat in silent frustration. The message had been sent. Something in Cleveland's leadership structure had fractured, and SHEDEUR's honesty had exposed it. But despite the tension, the team didn't turn on him. In fact, SHEDEUR earned more respect in one night than some quarterbacks earn in years. Players admired that he didn't throw anyone under the bus. He never named names. He never shamed. He told the truth but carried the burden of it himself. That's leadership. That's maturity. That's what wins locker rooms. The emotional gravity of his honesty bonded the team more closely around him. They saw not a kid, not a celebrity son, not a media creation, but a quarterback who felt every ounce of the game's weight just like they did. A quarterback who wasn't afraid to shoulder the uncomfortable truth. Meanwhile, former NFL stars watching the game took to social media and sports broadcasts to talk about how rare SHEDEUR's reaction was. They explained that most rookies are coached relentlessly to avoid commenting on play calling. They're told to stick to 3 safe phrases: "We didn't execute," "We need to get better," and "It starts with me." But SHEDEUR broke that mold, not out of ego but out of responsibility. NFL veterans recognized it instantly. They praised him for being accountable while still respectful. They said his honesty was necessary because young quarterbacks in unstable organizations often get blamed for losses they didn't cause. They said too many rookies go down with sinking ships because they're afraid to call out leadership failures. SHEDEUR, they said, refused to drown quietly.